Imagine watching just a really dull, totally unassuming fish suddenly turn this vibrant, screaming yellow.
Right.
Like essentially putting on a biological tuxedo, right?
Yeah.
Just to violently police a fish tank.
It's wild.
And then just as suddenly it takes that tuxedo off and reverts back to a drab color the exact moment the social dynamics in the tank change.
Ah.
So today, you are in for a treat because we are looking at a real-time biological whodunit.
It really is a mystery, honestly. And it's one that kind of forces us to question, how much of an animal's physical appearance is a static trait and how much is actually just a real-time reaction to its community.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this. We are taking a deep dive into a really captivating case study of the Golden Mbuna.
Scientifically known as the Melanochromis auratus.
Right, the Melanochromis auratus. But before we get into the weeds here, I really want to set the ground rules for today's deep dive, because we aren't looking at who wrote the source notes we're analyzing today, and honestly, we don't care where they were published.
No, not at all.
We are zeroing in purely on the raw content.
Yeah.
We have this fascinating set of observational notes detailing the behavior of this specific fish, and our mission is just to decode what those observations actually mean.
Which I think is the best way to approach a case study like this. I mean, when you strip away the academic pedigree or the author's background, you're left solely with the behavioral data.
Yeah, the raw facts.
Exactly. And the data here reads less like a standard biological survey and more like a psychological thriller playing out behind aquarium glass.
It really does. Because, when you observe animals, you naturally bring your own baggage to the table. You bring your own assumptions about how societies work, how mating works, how a social hierarchy is visually represented.
Oh, absolutely.
And the observer in our notes provides just a perfect example of how quickly reality can test those assumptions.
Yeah, and it happens immediately in the notes. I mean, the baseline state of the tank features this dominant fish that is just, well, it's visually underwhelming.
Right, it's very drab.
Yeah, it has this very dull coloration, but its behavior is completely outsized. It is relentlessly chasing the other fish around the tank.
Just bullying them.
Basically, yeah. It's asserting total dominance and not giving a single creature in that enclosure a moment of peace.
And the observer makes an assumption here, which, honestly, if I were looking at that tank, I would make the exact same one.
Right. It's a very logical leap.
Yeah, they assume this is a pair-bonding species.
Yeah.
But more specifically, they assume this hyper-aggressive, dull-colored fish is a frustrated male looking for a mate.
Right.
They see the restless patrolling and project this very human idea onto the fish, the idea of the bachelor who needs to find a partner to settle down.
It's a really common trap, honestly. We see a creature burning a massive amount of energy defending a territory, and we logically conclude, oh, it's preparing that territory for a singular partner.
Right, getting the house ready.
Exactly. So the observer decides to intervene and play matchmaker.
Right, they head to the shop, and they don't just buy any fish. They pick out the largest, most vibrant Golden Mbuna available.
The flashiest one in the store.
Exactly. And they drop this beautiful, flashy fish into the tank with the assumption that they've just introduced the female. Like the mate has arrived, the bachelor should be happy, and this whole aggression problem should be solved.
Nature, however, has a very funny way of humbling our logical conclusions.
Oh, man, it does. The intervention backfires completely spectacularly. During the acclimation period, as this new vibrant fish is just getting used to the water, the dominant dull-colored fish undergoes a completely unbelievable transformation.
It physically shifts its color.
Yes. It goes from a drab, dull tone to a bright, vibrant, screaming yellow. And instead of calming down, it spends all of its time relentlessly chasing the new arrival.
What's fascinating here is how the observer interprets that data, because they are still totally locked into that pair bonding assumption.
Right.
So they look at the color change and the intense chasing and conclude that, well, this is a mating attempt.
The visual is just amazing to me. It's like, it's like a guy sitting on the couch in a pair of stained sweatpants, acting generally irritable, right?
Yeah.
And the absolute second a potential date walks into the room, his biology kicks in, and he just manifests a flashy tuxedo. Like he didn't go to the closet. His body literally just became the tuxedo.
That's a really fun way to visualize the suddenness of the shift.
It's just this massive physical manifestation of trying to impress.
It is, but it also really highlights the danger of confirmation bias, because the sudden vibrant yellow certainly looked like a courtship display.
Sure.
And the chasing looked like the aggressive pursuit we sometimes see in mating rituals, but that physical color shift was actually signaling something much, much deeper.
We misinterpret aggression as romance because we want the narrative to fit our initial assumption.
Exactly. We see what we expect to see.
Well, the narrative falls apart pretty quickly because the quote-unquote date does not go well. The constant chasing isn't a courtship dance at all. It's just heightened aggression.
Right, it's harassment.
Yeah. The flashy tuxedo didn't work. The matchmaker failed. Which means our baseline assumption about this fish's entire social identity was just dead wrong.
Exactly. I mean, if introducing a supposed mate doesn't calm the dominant fish down, but instead creates this highly stressful environment of constant harassment, you have to throw out the pair bonding hypothesis entirely.
You just have to scrap it.
Yeah, because the biological reality of the Golden Mbuna is entirely different.
And that brings us to the first major pivot in the source notes. The observer finally realizes these fish are not pair bonders. They are what's known as mouth breeders.
Right. And that distinction completely changes the social arithmetic of the tank.
How so?
Well, the reproductive strategy of a mouth breeder requires a completely different environmental setup than a pair bonding species.
Let's break that down for everyone, because the notes specify that Golden Mbuna require a harem setup, meaning one male paired with at least 5 females. Why does being a mouth breeder biologically necessitate a harem?
It basically comes down to energy expenditure and evolutionary math. In a mouth-breeding species, the female literally carries the fertilized eggs and eventually the hatched fry inside her mouth for weeks.
To protect them from predators, right?
Exactly. But during this entire incubation period, she cannot eat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is an enormous, exhausting biological toll. She's basically starving herself to ensure the survival of the next generation.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. And because the female is entirely incapacitated by the breeding process, the male does not play a role in raising the young at all.
Okay, so what is his job then?
His biological imperative is purely to secure a large territory and distribute his genetics across as many females as possible. His drive to mate and defend space is just extremely high.
Okay, so if you take a fish with a biological hardwiring designed to manage a large territory and multiple females, and you drop him into a forced pair bonding situation, just 2 fish in a tank, you are creating a nightmare scenario.
You really are. You're taking 100% of his aggressive, territorial, and mating energy and concentrating it onto a single target.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there is no distribution of that energy. The female has no time to rest, no time to recover, and literally nowhere to hide.
Which perfectly explains the intense chasing we saw earlier.
Exactly.
So to fix this biological imbalance, the observer realizes they need to establish a proper harem. So they introduce 15 more fish to the tank.
It is a massive environmental intervention.
Wait, I have to stop you there because the logic of this feels entirely backwards to me. The text says they added 15 more fish to fix the aggression.
Right.
But if I'm locked in a room with a violent bully, adding 15 more people to that room doesn't magically make the bully less aggressive. It just gives him 15 more targets to punch. How does the math on this actually calm the tank down?
That's a completely fair question, and it introduces a crucial behavioral mechanism called aggression dispersion.
Aggression dispersion, okay.
Yeah. You have to stop thinking about the fish's aggression as human malice and start thinking about it as a biological algorithm for space management.
Okay, an algorithm. How does the algorithm break? How does adding fish help?
Think about the cognitive load on the dominant fish. When there is only one other fish in the tank, the dominant fish has a constant, unbreakable target lock. It never loses line of sight.
Right.
But when you introduce 15 new fish, you fundamentally alter the geometry and the visual data of the environment.
Oh, I see.
The dominant fish's brain is still running that defend territory algorithm, but now it is totally overwhelmed with inputs.
It's like a computer processor trying to handle too many tasks at once.
That's a great analogy. It's exactly like having 15 pop-up windows suddenly open on your screen.
Oh, man.
You try to click one closed and 3 more appear in your peripheral vision. The processor slows down. So in the tank, the dominant fish darts toward one target, but before it can truly harass that individual, 2 other fish swim across its field of view.
So it gets distracted.
Right. It breaks the target lock to pursue the new movement, only to be distracted again.
So the dominant fish doesn't necessarily become a pacifist. Its aggression is just diluted.
Exactly. The energy is spread so thin across the 15 new arrivals that no single fish bears the brunt of the harassment.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, the dominant fish tires itself out constantly recalculating its targets, which brings the overall stress level of the tank down. The algorithm simply cannot process that many vectors efficiently, resulting in a generally calmer atmosphere.
That is deeply counterintuitive, but brilliant. You solve the bully problem not by removing the bully,
Yeah.
but by overcrowding their radar until their processor just slows down.
Exactly.
So the intervention works. The 15 fish acclimate, the harassment is dispersed, and the Golden Mbuna society finally settles into a functional harem structure. The environmental stress is resolved.
But the biological mystery isn't over.
No, not even close. Because once that tank is balanced and the 15 new fish are swimming around doing their thing, the dominant fish's body reacts again. And this is the climax of our whole biological whodunit today. The vibrant yellow fish, the one that put on the flashy tuxedo to chase the newcomer, shifts its color back to the original dull tone.
The tuxedo comes off.
Why? I mean, we fixed the environment, the aggression is dispersed, the harem is established. Why is the biology still shifting?
Well, the source notes reveal a piece of evidence here that fundamentally upends every single assumption we have made since the observer first looked at the tank.
This is the twist that makes the Golden Mbuna such a fascinating subject for study.
It really is.
Because the dominant fish, the one we assumed was a frustrated bachelor, the one who manifested the vibrant yellow mating colors, the one ruling the tank with an iron fin, is actually a female.
It completely shatters the initial narrative.
I was reading the notes, and I genuinely had to reread that section. I was like, wait, we spent this whole time trying to solve a male aggression problem, and it was a female the entire time.
Yeah, it's incredible.
How does the observer finally figure this out? It comes down to a very specific piece of morphological evidence. The biggest giveaway is the total absence of dark blue stripes.
Right, because in male Golden Mbuna, dark blue stripes are a definitive underlying biological marker.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. The notes point out that even when this dominant fish went through extreme hormonal flux, shifting from dull to vibrant screaming yellow and then back to dull again, those dark blue stripes never appeared.
Not once.
If this fish were truly a male, the biological capability to produce those stripes would exist, and they would have shown up during those massive phenotypic shifts.
Exactly.
But they didn't, because she simply does not possess the genetic blueprint for them. She is undeniably a female.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals something astonishing about cichlid hierarchies.
Was that?
Well, social structures in these aquatic environments are incredibly complex. They are not merely based on which fish is the largest or the strongest. They are heavily dependent on stability. When a social hierarchy is in flux, like when a tank has too few fish, or when a true alpha male is missing, it creates a dangerous power vacuum.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. In the cichlid world, when that vacuum opens up, it is quite common for a dominant female to step into the role of a queen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She assesses the instability of the environment, registers that there is no male capable of maintaining order, and her biology actively responds to that environmental data. She assumes the dominant role to enforce the hierarchy herself.
I have to pause here because this completely exposes our inherent biases. As humans, we are heavily conditioned to assume that the most aggressive, space-controlling animal in any enclosure is the quote-unquote alpha male.
Oh, yeah. We constantly equate territorial control and physical aggression with maleness.
Exactly. We watch this fish chase everyone around, bully the newcomers, demand total submission, and we just thought, yep, typical frustrated male.
Right.
Yet what we were actually witnessing was a female who manipulated her own physical appearance, literally turning vibrant yellow to mimic courtship or dominance displays, specifically to manage the chaos of a fluctuating social structure.
It's amazing.
She wasn't a bachelor looking for a date. She was a queen stepping up as an enforcer because the society around her was falling apart.
And the beauty of this adaptation is in its reversal.
Yeah.
The moment the society was fixed, the moment the observer added the 15 extra fish, establishing the harem and stabilizing the power dynamic, the queen didn't need to be the enforcer anymore.
The environmental stress was gone.
Exactly. She could drop the vibrant yellow display, revert to her natural duller coloration, and simply exist within her territory without the overwhelming biological burden of managing a broken hierarchy.
Wow.
Her physical form was entirely dictated by the needs of her community.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's trace the arc of this deep dive, because it is just a masterpiece of adaptation. We started with an observer making a logical but ultimately flawed assumption, seeing a dull, quote-unquote, male aggressively seeking a mate.
Right.
Driven by that bias, a date was introduced, which triggered our fish to manifest a vibrant yellow tuxedo.
But the aggression only escalated, forcing the realization that these are actually mouth breeders that require a wide distribution of energy through a harem setup.
Exactly. We explored the mechanics of aggression dispersion, adding 15 fish to overwhelm the biological algorithm and calm the waters. And finally, the ultimate reveal. The tuxedo fades, the missing blue stripes give the game away, and we're left with a dull-colored queen who had simply been holding the fabric of her society together until a stable harem could be established.
This raises an important question about how we interact with the natural world. It reminds us that knowledge is only truly valuable when it is applied.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I mean, the observer in these notes didn't just passively watch a fish go crazy in a tank. They actively learned the specific biology of the creature, they learned the mechanics of mouth breeding, and the necessity of aggression dispersion.
Because if they hadn't applied that specific knowledge, they would have permanently trapped that fish in a highly stressful, totally unnatural loop.
Exactly. When we take the time to understand the why behind an animal's needs, rather than just reacting to the what of their behavior, we stop imposing our own flawed narratives onto them. We stop forcing a queen to play the role of a frustrated bachelor.
It is such a brilliant reminder to look past the surface. And it makes you wonder, if a fish's literal physical traits, its color, its vibrancy, are just a real-time mirror for the stress of its community, how much of our own behavior is a reaction to our environments?
That is a fascinating parallel. We are highly social creatures, much like the Mbuna.
Right. I mean, think about our own workplaces or our own unseen social hierarchies. How much are those environments quietly shaping our fundamental traits? Are there parts of your personality, your stress levels, or the way you interact with people that you assume are just who you are, but are actually just you putting on a vibrant yellow tuxedo to manage a chaotic room? We might be adapting to the instability of our own fish bowls far more than we realize. We really might. So, the next time you find yourself in a chaotic environment, maybe ask yourself if the tuxedo you're wearing is actually yours, or if the room just forced you to put it on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.